First of all, I just want to say, I love this job. It is the best job that I've ever had, and I've worked at a bunch of different jobs. It's so fulfilling, it's so much fun, it's everything I already like to do, and I just want to say thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to continue doing this job. And I don't think that like YouTubers owe things to the audience in terms of like we don't have to do exactly what the audience wants or anything like that, but I do think if you've been watching this channel for a while, you've noticed a certain type of video has been phased out over the course of the last maybe 3 years. And like I said, I don't think I owe you an explanation, but I would like to give you one because I would like to know this if I were not me. This would be something that I would be curious about myself. So in this video, I'm going to explain why I no longer make one small change videos or rewrites. However, if you wait till the end, you might find out something about one last one of these that I think is going to be pretty fun. Hi, my name is Nando, and I V Movies. I have been YouTubering for around 7 years. In fact, my first video came out in October of 2016. So it's been 7 years of this, and I love it. And I made lots of different kinds of videos. Mostly, I am known for two kinds of videos, or at least I was known. Rewrites, and what we called one small change, which was basically like a smaller version of a rewrite. You would watch a movie and then think about it critically and say, this is what I like, this is what I didn't like. And you take something that you didn't like, kind of zero in on it and say, okay, beyond just saying I didn't like this, what would I change, potentially informed by some sort of source material that this would drawing upon, and say, how would a small change to this have made the overall story more successful or something like that. This was not necessarily like a format or video type that I created. I'm sure other people had been doing something like this, but it definitely became a big part of my brand. My first video back in 2016, the Sharon Carter theory, was a one small change kind of video. It was a theory that Sharon Carter was the bad guy in Civil War. But the video that started this channel was not that video. It was one that I started writing before that, but didn't make the video until later. My How Could Spider-Man Be Better Introduced in Civil War. I had an argument with a friend who didn't like the way that Spider-Man was introduced in that movie. And I said, well, you know, I kind of agree with you, but I wonder if you had tweaked it. Do you just hate this movie or hate Spider-Man? Or would a version of it where he showed up on his own instead of being invited by Tony, would that have made it different? And then I kind of went through in my head, it's like a thought experiment, what would that movie look like? That was not the first video I made, I believe it was the fourth, but the idea for that was kind of the first big idea of the channel. And over time, I had a lot of other videos that got attention. You know, my Hella Isn't Hella video, that did very well. One Marvelous Scene, obviously, that did very well. Certain videos breaking down different characters or like weird things about these movies, some of those got a lot of attention, but by a mile, the video that made the beginning of this channel was this one small change thing, where I would watch a movie like, let's say, Black Panther, and say, well, I really like that movie. I didn't love the ending with all the bouncing around CGI fighting. I wonder if the movie would be more successful if he didn't have vibranium at the end of the movie. So like, I would make a video about that. Usually maybe 10 minutes long, wouldn't take a ton of time to make. Sometimes, like with Black Panther, I could figure out the like idea of the video on the drive home. I've made these about like pretty much every major comic book movie that's come out in the last like decade. Like, man, honestly, yeah. Because like I had to go back a little bit because I did like Winter Soldier, I did the first Iron Man movie, Batman v Superman, Man of Steel, all that, covered most of that. I never did like Dark Knight, so I guess like I didn't do the Nolan stuff, but like most of the rest of this I've talked about. And recently, maybe about a year ago, I just kind of said I wasn't going to do these anymore. And I think I knew why, but I had not been forced to sit down and like think about it and like write it all out and get all my thoughts out there. And because of that, I never really communicated exactly why I. And for a while, probably about a year, I've been saying I will make a video about this eventually, and I've decided to do it. I think I know exactly why now, and I want to lay it out to you. I've got a couple bullet points, and I will explain it. It's kind of the story of this channel, help you understand the history, help you understand me, which this is rare, because if you know me, I do not like talking about myself. I barely ever do it. This is an outlier for the channel. I love to talk, but just like not about me. But okay, but to understand the story of why I stopped doing these, you got to look back to about 2020, 2021. I say 2020, even though 2021 is really when most of this started, because 2020, I don't know if you guys remember, COVID happened and it messed up everything. And it messed up a lot of big important things in people's lives in a way that's terrible. It also really changed the way that the film and television landscape looked at the time. A lot of things got delayed. A lot of things that like content creators like myself, video people who make videos about popular movies, they're stopped being popular movies for like a year. They just weren't releasing the big ones, and no one really knew what to do with that. Like, we weren't sure, am I gonna be making movies on this channel about Scoob and trolls? Like, what am I going to be doing? How long are Bloodshot and Onward going to keep this channel going before we get another Marvel thing? And this was a big problem across the board, but it forced YouTubers to think, hey, what can I do to make my channel a little bit more sustainable? And think about other kinds of videos we could make. I made like a lot of videos I enjoyed. My Artemis Fowl video, where I looked at how that movie was definitely changed in reshoots. I made my Phase 2 is in the wrong order video, which I also think is very fun. And I made my Star Wars Episode 9 rewrite, which I love. And that's to say, that's one thing I will say about all this before we really get into it. I stand by all of my videos. Like, besides like certain tiny things about some of them, like, I don't think I've ever made a video, like, I haven't made like a one small change video that I like regret. Then I'm like, oh, I was bad, I shouldn't have done that. Like, I think all of the opinions I've expressed in them are ones I still stand by. Like I said, besides like tweaks in language and stuff like that. I'm definitely not doing these because like I hate them all. I know a lot of people feel this way about their videos, and there's some things that I don't love about watching my old videos, but in general, I have no problem looking at them and going like, oh yeah, no, I more or less still agree with that. So 2021, this is the year that I stopped making these one small change videos, and all three things that need to happen during this year happen. The first is people stop watching them. I made a couple in 2021 that I thought were pretty good. I don't think any of them were like lower quality than previous years. Some of them were like movies that weren't as popular, right? Like I made a one small change for Black Widow, one for The Suicide Squad, WandaVision, The Fatuous. Like I did all of the big releases of that year. And while none of those videos fully bombed, none of them did great. And that was a sign to me that maybe this is just not what people want anymore. And I understand that. And like, if that was something that I got like as a signal very clear, like if they did all bomb, I would definitely rethink that whole part of the channel. With this, it was a little bit slower, so I wasn't forced to. Reason number two, also related to WandaVision, kind of, coronavirus. Okay, so in general, I don't think there's anything wrong with being negative about a movie. I think there's some people that will say like, if you can't say a nice thing, don't say anything. That's not my deal. I understand that thought process, but I also think there's something cathartic culturally about watching a movie that is not good and then all acknowledging the way we all perceive that thing. Like, that doesn't mean we all have to think the same way, but there is something special about everybody going to see a movie and then you kind of all leave the theater and look at each other and go, that was really weird, right? And so like, I think saying things that are negative about a work of art, it's fine. I think it's okay. Now, I think there is something to the idea of how you say it. I think being incredibly negative will generally foster an attitude. I think part of the way I present my videos that makes this a little less of an issue is that I don't think in my videos I, like certain, I don't know, jabronis on YouTube, present myself as some sort of writing genius who knows better than all the people that are writing. I've tried very hard to say like, listen, I'm just some guy. I, read the books and stuff, and I like read the comic books and the screenwriting books, and I watch the movies, but like, I don't know better than these people. This is just my interpretation. But I do still think like when you're criticizing a movie like Black Panther and you can look at the special effects and like, they would have liked better special effects if they could have, but you can say time and money kind of stop them from doing that. Those are the limitations that every movie has had to deal with forever. And I think there's something special about COVID. Because you saw these shows and movies like WandaVision or, even like Spider-Man No Way Home, where you could tell they started filming it, or at least they planned and started doing some of this stuff before COVID hit. And then after COVID hit, they had to do some more stuff. So like reshoots, extra photography, all that stuff happens after the fact, but now in a COVID environment. And I do think reshoots get a really bad reputation. I understand why. A lot of the worst movies you've ever seen have had reshoots, expensive, big reshoots. But on the other hand, a lot of the best movies you've seen have reshoots, and like, we don't care because they're good. So there's nothing wrong with getting reshoots. And a lot of the times, like something like WandaVision, let's say, get shot, they do it all, and they finish it, and they say, well, this looks great, and then they want to go back and reshoot something. It certainly seems like And maybe not WandaVision specifically, maybe to Fat Twist, maybe Loki. I don't have a very specific thing to point to, but there were definitely a couple of things that happened in 2021 that felt like this was not the original plan. COVID forced them to do it this way. It's part of why I was very forgiving when it comes to the CGI in movies like Spider-Man No Way Home, where there'd be like a shot of Flash in what looked like a green screen instead of a street, and people say, oh, why didn't they film this in a real street? Why aren't there more extras? It's like, I don't know, because of COVID. They didn't want to, it's complicated and dangerous. They don't want to get people sick, and it's too much work. And on one hand, like, sure, maybe, you know, wait years and years until you can film all of this safely, but on the other hand, like, it's a movie, it has to come out. So when people are being extra critical of effects and stuff like that, I was a little bit more, let's say, forgiving with that kind of stuff. And I think the same is true of writing. Like, there were definitely some moments in things like WandaVision, and again, one of my favorite, probably my favorite MCU show, maybe behind She-Hulk, but like, there were certain things that were happening in that show. They got wrapped up in a way that I'm like, I cannot imagine they were building up to everything with the kids for them to just get shot and then Spectrum saves them and then the end. Like, it felt like there was more, and I believe there was more. I think we know, we've seen like art or something that was the plan. And part of me wants to go in and make a video after that and say, like, this is what they should have done with the kids. This is an option. But at the same time, maybe they did want to do that. Maybe that was the plan. Maybe this is something all of the screenwriters and everybody working on WandaVision knew, but because of COVID, they couldn't. I think about it kind of like this. Imagine you go to a party and there's a cake, and the person who baked the cake used a very strange ingredient that you don't quite love. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, hey, if I were making this cake, probably would have used this ingredient instead, if that is what you would have done. I think it's a little different if, say, the person making the cake can't use flour because there's like a recall or something, or like E. coli or something is out there and it's gotten in all the flour. So they have to substitute it with something else. And they bring the cake to the party and you eat the cake and you say, I would use flour. Personally, that's just me, but I think flour actually would have been great here. And it's like, well, yeah, they would have done that too, but they couldn't because it was unsafe. And that was what it felt like a little bit with COVID, was like, not only could what I'm saying in general be misinterpreted as like criticism coming from someone who is truly a jerk, but it could be like, man, I wish they had done it this way instead and like risked the lives of the staff and the people that were working with them. Why didn't they do that? Like, in a vacuum, some of these videos and these like thoughts make sense, but when you put it in the context of how these movies were actually being made and distributed, and when you take into account like how much work studios had to do, how expensive some of this stuff was when it comes to like having a set that was safe for the actors, and man, I like take COVID so seriously, and like I think it is great that people like Tom Cruise were taking it very seriously. So like the idea of making videos where I'm saying I would have done certain things differently, and in reality that could have been the plan all along, but they just couldn't do it like that because of COVID, I don't know, it felt weird. I didn't love that. This isn't the whole reason why I stopped doing it, but it is one of them. So that's two of the reasons. There's more. But before that, I want to do a real quick frequently asked questions segment, because I get these questions a lot, and I'm sure I've answered some of them on live streams and on podcasts and stuff like that, but I want to get it out there since this is like as close as I have to like a here's my story kind of video. The big question is your name Nando? Is that your actual name? The answer is no. Not even a little. It's not even my middle name, or, you know, a relative's name or something like that. I wish there was a better story, but here's where this came from, because it didn't come from nowhere. Basically, my name is Matt Kelly, and there have always in my life been lots of Matts, and even some Matt Kellys that aren't me. So like that's always been kind of annoying. And if you're one of those guys or girls, I don't know what the girls' version of this is, but for guys like Chris or Mike or Steve, you go into a new environment with a lot of other guys and you start noticing a couple of those, right? So like I went to college, and in my dorm on the floor that I was on, there was already one other Matt, and it was like a small floor, and above us there was another Matt, and we knew another Matt, and it was just annoying. And I tried, you know, I gave them options, Kelly, MK, Kells. If that had worked, I would have been cool with that. But none of those nicknames really caught on, and I was like, open to whatever. So one night, me and my roommate are watching stand-up comedy. We're watching a video of a comedian, and the comedian, as his like example name for someone he was talking to, uses the name Fernando. And I said, that's a cool name. Fernando's a good name. And my roommate said, oh, is that, you want to be called Fernando now? And I said, oh yeah, absolutely. And I didn't really think anything of it. I kind of went by. And then the next day, I got back from classes. That thing, I don't know if everybody has these at college, that thing where like the RA puts your name on the door with like a picture of something that has nothing to do with you, but it just ends up being your thing. That my roommate had crossed my name out and written Fernando. And that was it. Like, it just really took off. I think in the beginning, I think people were kind of, it was a joke. That was like, oh, hey, look, it's Fernando. And I was like, haha, yeah. But if you've ever gotten a nickname that was not your doing, or at least not intentionally, you know that you can't fight a nickname, because the more you protest, the more people will call you it, especially guys at college. So I just kind of went with it. It eventually got shortened to Nando, but it became a thing. Like, everybody that knew me as Nando. Everybody that I met while I was at college calls me Nando. There were teachers that mostly knew me as Nando. I had the Nando email address at this school. Like, it was a thing. So when I started doing a podcast with a friend of mine from college who called me Nando, it just made sense to keep doing that. And we did that for a couple of years, and then I made a YouTube channel, and I asked my friends what I should call this YouTube channel, and one of them suggested Nando V Movies. So at that point, it was like, well, I might as well stick with this. And it is a cool name. I like Nando. I think it's fun. I like the ABBA song Fernando. But, like, it has nothing to do with me. I am not, Italian or Spanish or anything like that. Like, I'm like generally European. But, like, there's nothing specific for me. It really is just a name that I heard and made a remark that I kind of liked it, that just stuck way too long. I've thought about changing the channel back to Matt V Movies or Matt Kelly V Movies or something, but none of it really sticks. And like, at this point, there's so many people that know me as Nando, it's just easier to kind of keep doing it this way. And to be fair, this is a stupid reason, but like, I read these comic books, Spider-Man, Peter Parker, Superman, Clark Kent, Batman, Bruce Wayne, like this two identities thing that are the same thing. It's not a crazy, it is, not a great idea in real life to be a superhero, but like this idea of like a public persona and a private persona actually kind of makes sense as a way to separate these two worlds. So I don't know, I kind of liked it. In case you don't believe me, I kept this door thing because it's important, and it's where this story came from. So I've put two beautiful Nando V Movies bookmarks over my roommate's name, so you can't see his. But if you look at mine, you can see this is Fernando Kelly. This is what the whole thing started as. And like, man, it took off. I couldn't have imagined it. It's nice too, because like if you Google Nando, there's not a couple of results before me. Like there's the chicken place, which I think is cool. We don't have too many around me, but I like them. And there's probably like some other people, but it's like easy to become the main Nando. Compared to Matt, like there's so many Matts. There were like 3 Matt starting quarterbacks at one point. 2 of the 3 friends were named Matt. So, us Matts, I understand the idea of wanting to get a new name. I will say one other thing about names. I have a trick that I use to help remember people's names, because they're arbitrary, and you meet 10 people at a party and you learn all their names and you immediately forget them. So here's what I do. Unless it's a name that's so interesting that I'm like, I'm gonna remember that. But if I meet someone, let's say the name is Chris, and I'll say, oh, Chris. Like, I always ask people this, who's your favorite Chris? In like, real life, movies, television, you got, the Hemsworth, the Pine, all of the real life Chris's, you have like fictional Chris's and all that. Who's your favorite one? And then me and this person will have a short conversation about their favorite person with that name, and I'll say, oh, I love Chris, Chris Cross from 30 Rock, Liz's Boyfriend by James Marsden. We'll talk about that, and then I'll leave, and if I have to remember that guy's name, I will look at them and then go, oh, that's a 30 Rock person, 30 Rock Chris Cross, Chris. So that's just how I do this. It is a trick that has served me very well. I would highly recommend it. Other questions? How long does it take me to make a video? I don't know, about a month. It takes about a month to finish one. Start to finish, if I'm like writing it. I'll think about some of these for much longer. Deadpool 3 I was thinking about for a year pretty much, and it finally materialized. It's all about when I actually start writing it. There are some videos that I wrote a while ago that I just have not actually produced, but for the most part I would say a month is as long as it takes. Other frequently asked question. I don't have a favorite video that I've made, but I do think that out of all my pitches, Deadpool might be my favorite pitch, the Deadpool 3 pitch, just because it feels so possible. Like, I don't think that's what we're getting, but it feels like something that we could get, and I think it would just be really fun. Like, as a fan of these, I think that all these movies that I pitched will be good versions of the stories that they're telling, like a good continuation of where Superman is or where Batman is or whatever. With Deadpool, it really is personal just because I love the X-Men so much, and this is what I always wanted from an X-Men movie, and it seems like Deadpool 3 will be an opportunity to be that moment for those movies, so no, that part of it is kind of meaningful. But I'd say that's maybe my favorite video. I don't know, it'll change when I put out the video after this because I absolutely love it and I can't wait for everybody to see it. We'll talk about that at the end of this video. But alright, back to why I stopped making One Small Changes. Because in 2021, I started making all these other videos, right? And I stopped making One Small Change videos because people aren't watching them. But then 2022, something else happens, is I start making other kinds of videos. For a while, people have been asking me to make videos casting certain actors in movies that we knew were going to come out eventually. It's like Fantastic Four and X-Men. Those are the two we got a lot of. And originally I was kind of like not interested in it just because it wasn't what I was doing. But after the One Small Change just kind of cooled down, I had a second to think about, hey, what else could I be doing? I said, maybe I will do this. So I made, well, I guess first I made the Keanu Reeves casting video. That was kind of like a little, you know, let's see if this works out. But then the Fantastic Four cast in 2022 was the first big one of those, and it was a huge success. I had a really fun time making it. And then after that, I was able to make the X-Men ones, Batman, Authority, all that stuff. It's been really great. I love making these videos for two reasons. One, it gives me an opportunity to read a lot of comics that I maybe wouldn't read. So like sometimes it gives me an opportunity to just read random comics, right? Like for like Rogue, I read Rogue's, you know, 5-issue, I think, origin series that I had never read before. And like that is fun. Just reading new comics is fun. They're like Authority. I'd never read an Authority comic before I started working on that video. And now I love those guys. I read all of them. Like I, you know, really enjoy reading comics. On top of that, it gives me an opportunity to watch weird movies that I wouldn't have watched. So like, you know, learn about like Zoe Dutch. I watched that movie, Set It Up. It's like a rom-com where her and Glenn Powell set up their two workaholic bosses together. And like, it's not a movie I would watch on any normal day. It's not on my radar, but it was a nice little treat. Or sometimes I'll watch a really bad movie, but that'll be fun too. There's all kinds of good times to be had. Also, it's great to revisit those videos a year, 2 years later, look at these movies and say, hey, they still haven't cast the Fantastic Four, or, oh man, it did seem like we were gonna get this person, but now we maybe not. Like I talked about Margot Robbie, who for a while was the front runner for Sue Storm, and Vanessa Kirby, who is currently the front runner for Sue Storm. So like looking back and being like, oh, I got those right. Or looking back and being like, nope, they didn't pick my Superman, they picked a different one. Is fun. It gives the videos more engagement, but it's also just like a fun way to look back at certain things you said and see if you were right or not. Because if you end up being right, then you get praise, and I love praise. Continue giving me praise, everybody. It's great. So that's why the casting videos are awesome. And like, again, I just love the X-Men so much. Any opportunity to talk about the X-Men, I will take. And I genuinely, I've said this in 2 videos. There's 2 videos that I promised and never made besides this. Fan casting X Factor Investigations and fan casting Batman Beyond. I have those partially written, I just haven't recorded them, like filmed them, but they will happen. They might be Nebula exclusive, but like I am gonna make those eventually. So fan casting, and that's why I have these guys here. I have Scott, this is fan casting, Agatha Theories, and then other Scott Lang right here. Pitches. So the other thing I started doing, and I had done this a little bit before, because I did the Suicide Squad 2 pitch very early in the life of the channel in October 2018. But then obviously I did the Ant-Man 2 pitch in May of 2019, one of my favorite videos I've ever made. It's such a fun experience to come up with that, to think about that, work with Alexander Duran, my storyboard artist, who created those really fun storyboards. And speaking of getting praise, to make this fun pitch, and just kind of as like an idea I had at the time that there was no indication was going to happen. Throw MODOK in as the villain, and then 5 years later, look who's the villain in the third Ant-Man movie. Like, just getting those things, those little details, and being like, oh, me and Kevin Feige are on the same page. That's kind of fun. I mean, we're on the same page, obviously, because I write all the Marvel movies, but like, you know, in other ways. So I made the Ant-Man video. I didn't do a lot of pitches after that. I think the next one I did was my 50 What If episode pitches, which is also a ton of fun. But after that, then we start doing things like, I have a couple here written down. I have a Sinister Six pitch, that is actually pretty good. I think they should do it. MCU Spider-Man 4, The Batman 2, a Thunderbolts movie, the special presentations, West Coast Avengers, Superman, Deadpool 3, Midnight Suns, Thor 5. I'll tell you, I enjoy making the fan casting videos and some of these other ones, but the pitches are my favorite. It's so fun. It's so fun to read these comics that become the inspiration for these pitches and, you know, find out about different characters, different interactions. Because part of what I went to school for when I was in college and high school was engineering. Engineering is like the idea of problem solving on a, you know, usually technical scale, but like the idea of taking a problem and saying, how do we engineer a solution? Looking at like the Thunderbolts and saying, how do we tell a story about the Thunderbolts the way they usually exist in the comics in the MCU? Because there's a little problem solving there. You're fitting a square peg into a round hole, and the act of actually getting that to fit is really fun. These solutions that it's like, oh my god, if this guy was actually this character, this would work perfectly. And then, oh look, we get this interaction. It's really fun. I really enjoy it. So it's a confluence of all of these things, right? People stopped watching the One Small Change videos. COVID happened, which made me think differently about how these videos are perceived. And then I started making other kinds of videos that I really loved. So it would be like, could I make a One Small Change video? Sure. Could I make a rewrite video? Probably. But I don't want to because I want to do a pitch or fan casting instead. But then there's the fourth reason. The fourth reason is the most complicated, but it's basically this. I understand how my videos can be perceived as me seeming like I know better than Hollywood people. Like I said, I do not think of myself as a jabroni. However, the jabroni, if you know who I'm talking about, it's my She-Hulk video. A certain YouTuber loves to make videos where he says how they should have made things. And I do think just the difference in tone and certain words used will show that, like, when I'm making those videos, I don't think I'm smarter than the people making the movies or anything like that. It is just like a thought experiment, like an exercise that I'm doing to help myself become a better story writer and all that. I don't think that I'm like giving notes to actual writers and artists and everybody who's working really hard on movies. That being said, I can understand how someone in that position could see a video like mine and be like, screw this guy, you know? Who's he to tell me how to make my Black Panther movie? Look at all the work I put into it. And he's saying, oh, I actually should have done this. I understand how it could be perceived that way. And I've never had a negative interaction like that or anything like that. When, like, you know, I've not gotten a call from Ryan Coogler, for example, who said like, hey, why'd you say such mean things about Black Panther? And the more I've learned about the filmmaking process and the industry and Twitter and YouTube and things like that, the more it's made me a little less psyched to make videos critiquing movies in this way. Because I don't want it to be perceived as if I am that jabroni from, I'll just say it's a critical drinker. But like, I don't want people to think that's what I'm doing. And even if it's a mistake, like even if they misinterpret it, if I eventually want to work with them in the future, then I absolutely don't want to start off with them being like, who are you? Oh, you're that guy that made that video about how my movie stunk. Yeah, I hate you. You're fired, you know? And I don't think that's going to happen. But at the end of the day, I don't want the first thing people know about me to be like, oh, it's that YouTuber who complains about movies. I'd love it to be like, hey, it's that YouTuber who pitched that wonderful Midnight Suns movie that we all loved so much and we hope they eventually would make before the MCU is rebooted and none of these characters can meet. But like, that's what I want to be. That's the vibe I want to give off. Because I do eventually want to work, not like necessarily in Hollywood or in Marvel or DC or anything like that, but like I do want to do this for a living. Like I, in my spare time, over the last couple of years, at least two, maybe three, I cannot honestly remember when I started doing this, but I've been writing like independently, you know, short films and like ideas for that, but also like screenplays. I have 2 screenplays that I've been working on in various stages of completion that I think are like pretty close to done, within the realm of being finished. I decided my goal for this video was I would definitely do it when I had 90 pages of one of them written, and I don't. But together I have more than 90 pages, so it's like one of them's going to be done soon. And I want to eventually make those movies, and I don't want to go into the filmmaking industry with the reputation of being that guy who complains about movies online. I would love to be known as the guy who pitches fun versions of movies that everyone likes. And it just so happens that those videos are more fun to make for me. And people seem to like them. Like, they get lots of views and lots of engagement and all that. Like, so it's really a win-win-win-win. The reason I don't do One Small Change videos anymore, people don't really watch them anymore. It felt a little mean. There were other videos that I liked doing more. And if I was known as the guy who makes videos changing popular movies, that would be less good in my head than being the pitching guy or something like that. I will say, I still love making all of the videos that I made, and I 100% stand by all of my, I will listen to like certain rewrites and like some of these videos that I haven't listened to in a very long time. And I'm always like, yeah, I stand by that. I think that idea still holds up. Again, like I said, certain words or like phrases or whatever, maybe I would have changed, but like overall, I think it's good. And yeah, some of the dialogue sounds corny, but I think part of that is just I'm one guy reading all the lines and I'm not a professional actor, and like it will always kind of say, I think if I read a description of Avengers Endgame, like the big finale, it would sound corny too, because it's coming from me and not the movie. So, you know, I think there's limits to how cool any of that can actually sound, but I think once you like kind of, you know, once you adjust for that, I think most of it's pretty good. So that's why I don't make One Small Change videos anymore. That being said, just for a treat, because I do know a lot of you like them, I will make one more. I have one more change type video. Now, I didn't originally plan to do this, but like a month or so ago, I asked a question on Twitter. I asked, what video, if you got to just pick one video for me to make, what would it be? Now, I read all the responses. Some of them were not what I expected, but one of them did come up quite a few times. It has also come up on the Nando V Movies Discord channel, and frankly, in the problem-solving like kind of mindset, it is a question I've come up against a bunch. Part of it has to do with the fact that like one of these characters in this thing is a character that I've been thinking about for so long, and the implications of a decision about this character, something I've been thinking about for so long, that when it actually happened, first of all, I was blown away that I ended up predicting this thing correctly, but second, I was like, oh, no, I don't like this one bit. And I worry that sometimes things I say will be misinterpreted, but I really truly believe I've said every single thing I can say that could be interpreted negatively about this already on podcasts or Nando Cut videos or whatever. So I don't think there's anything to lose. And on the other side, then this is very much like a product made by a humongous studio, by a bunch of money, just reshot. So I don't feel that bad. It's like I saw a video the other day. It was on Twitter, so like, I don't know where this came from, but it was somebody doing kind of what I do, but with The Shining, like being like, oh, they should have put her closer to the door, because then you would have known if it was really blood. It's like, well, I mean, like, there's a big difference between saying like Justice League movie that was cobbled together because of reshoots and all that, it didn't work as well as I'd hoped, versus like, I don't think they really got The Shining. I don't think Stanley Kubrick really, you know, like put it all in there. I feel like there's a big difference between those two things. And the thing I'm about to talk about is definitely on that first side, where it's like, this is as corporate and as produced as something could possibly be. So I don't feel so bad about it. So with all that said, this is the announcement that the last one of these I'm ever going to do is one that I've been working on for the last month and I absolutely love. And it is a rewrite of Secret Invasion. Now, I can't say exactly what it is. It's not the pitch that some people have said, which is like, it should have been an Avengers movie, because it's not that. It's very much within the bounds of what it seemed like they were going for with Secret Invasion. And like I said, most of why I feel okay doing this is because I made a video 4 or 5 years ago about how Rhodey should have been a Skrull, and then they made Rhodey a Skrull, and it was this. So I want to just give you an idea of kind of one of the ways you could maybe have done that differently. And by changing that, you change a lot of the rest of it. So that video is much longer than I expected it to be. I think it's great, and it'll be on YouTube eventually. But if you want to watch it right now, you can find it on this video's sponsor, Nebula. And if you don't know, you must know by now, but you probably know, Nebula is a subscription streaming service that I helped to create. That's right, me. And a bunch of other YouTubers that are friends of mine that I think make amazing stuff, right? Patrick Willems, Captain Midnight, Hello Future Me, like a lot of really cool creators have been working on Nebula for a while, and we've made so many cool original Nebula program, like jet lag. I mean, a lot of people watch jet lag. I've never used that before as like an example because I just assume everybody knows jet lag. But if you don't know jet lag, like look it up. It's so much fun. It's a game show where people travel and they have to catch each other, play tag, and it's like different games. It's really great. Like I understand why it's such a hit. But we have stuff like that, independent movies, videos. I mean, hell, if I made a short film or even a long film, there's a good chance it would be a Nebula, original Nebula exclusive. It wouldn't be the first feature film they've made on the platform. And like I said, I'm not completely finished with the scripts. This is not something that we've like nailed down, but like that's what Nebula can be for. But besides that, you get all my videos early. It's like this video was on Nebula when the Thor video went on YouTube. That's the idea of Nebula first. So if you like watching my videos and you like would love to see the next one right now, which is the Secret Invasion rewrite, which I love, like I cannot stress enough how good I think it ended up. I'm just really pleased with it. I don't like to talk about like positively about my stuff too much, but like I'm pretty excited about this one. So if you want to watch that, that's on Nebula right now. And like there's a fantastic app. There's lots of nice categories and like rails that you can look at on the homepage to see other videos you wouldn't normally look at. Like there's creators there that are not just, it's not just people who are like film and entertainment people. Like Legal, everybody knows Devin. I've been in a couple of his videos before. He is on Nebula and he's kind of part of the like kind of current events Nebula stuff where like a really interesting thing will happen in the news and I will go to Nebula and see if there's a video by Devin explaining it, and there is, usually. And tons of new channels have joined, like Climate Town joined kind of recently, which is a channel I really like, and I was super psyched to see them on Nebula. So like it is growing, the things that we are doing are growing, the creators we're working with are growing, and the platform itself is expanding and like more functionalities going to the apps and stuff. It's really cool. And usually with the code NANDO, N-A-N-D-O, you get Nebula for around $2.50 a month, which is roughly $30 a year, which like $2.50 is an incredible deal. But depending on when you're watching this, there's another way to join Nebula. That is our lifetime membership. Now, this is something that we are currently only running for the month of September. I'm putting this video up at the very end of September. So if you're watching this in September, you can join Nebula for $300 for the rest of your life. As long as Nebula and you continue to exist, and as far as Nebula is concerned, we don't have any plans to stop existing anytime soon. So you will always have access to Nebula. And I know what you're thinking, $300, that's a lot of money, especially considering you just said that $30 gets you a year. So this is 10 years of Nebula. That's a long time. And yeah, it is. This is 100% like not the best deal. If you want to get the best value version of this, that is the $30 a year version, 100%. The idea behind why we're doing this is we want to fund a lot of these big projects, right? These original shows and movies and, you know, plays. We're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. All of that costs money to make, and you need that money up front. Like the way other companies would do that is they would get money from investors and stuff like that, and that would be how they would raise this money in the beginning so that they could fund these projects, and then ideally when that thing comes out they would get more subscriptions. It would like balance out. But when you do that, you involve investors who a lot of the time are not there for the good of the platform or the art. And I will say, like, for sure, not all investments are bad, but it is something that we wanted to avoid at all costs. So as a way to raise funds up front, that's what this lifetime membership is for. Like, we understand it is not the most cost-effective option, it is not for everybody. But if you plan to have Nebula for a long time and you have $300 to spend right now, it is a great way to both get access to Nebula, get all our cool stuff, everything early, all that, and support us, give us the opportunity to make cool stuff in the immediate future, stuff that can be expensive and big. We've got a lot of original projects in the works, and I would love to make something very big and cool and fun that you guys can all watch on Nebula in the future. So that is part of what the lifetime membership is for. Now, like I said, it ends in September, and September is probably almost over depending on when you're watching this video. I don't know if it will continue or if it will like show up again. There is no current plan for that on the books, but from what I understand, it is very popular. People really like it, so it might show up in the future. I cannot guarantee that. So if you sign up using my link that is on screen now or in the description, you can get a lifetime membership to Nebula. If you're watching this video after September, go to go.nebula.tv/Nando, and you've still got that monthly Nebula subscription that all rounds out to about $30 a year, which is still a great deal. You get access to all the cool Nebula stuff, and you get to watch all my videos early, which is great, and it supports the channel. Hopefully I'll see you there. Thank you, for everybody that's still here. Thank you for supporting the channel. I love this job. I am so happy that I'm able to do this. It's so rewarding. It's so cool to like see you guys in person and like just, talk to people about this kind of stuff. Like that is a feeling that is wonderful. And yeah, I've done plenty of other jobs. Some I've liked more than others, but like this is by far the best one. So I just want to thank you guys for watching, continuing to support the channel, and hopefully the channel will exist for a long time. We'll be able to do all kinds of cool stuff.